Next steps for Flash. Before you start working within this file here, I'd like you to practice a little bit of the different things that you can do in Flash. So I'm going to show you some basic tween things right now. So what I'd like you to do is just go into your Flash menu at the top, make a new file. Again, choose ActionScript 2.0. Doesn't matter the size of this right now. We're just practicing, so don't worry about that. Over here, you're going to see some familiar tools from other programs. You've got a fill color, a stroke color. You should remember that from Illustrator. Remember that all these Adobe programs work together, so the idea is that all the tools look similar and work similarly so that you can apply the skills you've learned in one to other programs. Obviously, Zoom tool, this is your hand tool to move around. Eraser, eyedropper, paint bucket. This is a tool you're going to get into in grade 11 where you're making things move and walk and stuff like that. Paintbrush, pencil, these are all your shape tools if you end up drawing some things in here. Text, the pen tool is in here too, lasso. This is a 3D rotation tool we're going to talk about maybe later. And this is when you need to transform something larger or smaller. You've got the sub-selection tool, which is like the direct selection tool in Illustrator, and your main selection tool. So what I'd like you to do to start is just take the oval tool, pick a couple of fun colors, and draw yourself a small circle over here. There we go. A couple of things to notice here. There is indeed a stroke color on the edge of this image, and you'll also notice that we're not losing any resolution when we zoom in, and that's because we are working in vectors when we're in Flash. That's not to say that you can't actually bring in a pixelated image. You can bring in a bitmap into this, but for now we're just going to work with the vectors that you've drawn in Illustrator and bring them into Flash. A couple of things to note. When you draw an object in Flash, you have to double click on it to select both the stroke and the center. This becomes an extremely annoying thing if you don't remember to do that. So for instance, if I only click once and I move the purple, you'll see that I've left behind the stroke. This sort of thing can become just a big issue in your work as you go. So remember that you need to double click if you want everything to move together. Command Z or Control Z is the same undo shortcut on your keyboard. Okay, so we've drawn a purple circle. Let's double click on layer 1. Purple circle. Name your layers. Great. Okay, things to notice down here. You've got some numbers and you've got some little rectangles below those numbers. This is your timeline, and it's noted here. These are all the layers that you saw come in from your Illustrator file. Obviously, an animation takes place over time, so this isn't a static image like you've been building in Illustrator or Photoshop. And in Photoshop, we did a little bit of experimenting with GIF animation, and the same idea of applying different frames over a certain period of time applies in here. Right now, Flash has been told that in frame 1 of my movie, there's a purple circle with a green stroke. I'm going to tell it now that I want that same purple circle with a green stroke to exist in frame 60. To do that, I'm going to right-click in frame 60, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll get an Insert Keyframe option. There's going to be a lot of right-clicking in Flash, so if you haven't set up your Mac mouse to accept a right-click, you should go into your options and change that. So right now I've told the movie that between frame 1 and frame 60, there's a purple circle with a green stroke, but you'll notice it's not doing anything. What you need to do is tell Flash to do something with that purple circle. When you see a black dot inside the frame underneath the number, that's an indication to the system that you've decided to make a change at this point. A keyframe is a key part of the animation where you've made a change. And you should only really use a keyframe if you're going to make a change. Everything in between here is just frames, and they're filling in the blanks to the keyframe. In frame 60, we're going to tell Flash that we're going to make a change. So I make sure I'm clicked in frame 60, and I'm just going to move our purple circle to the other side of the screen. Now, an important thing in Flash is that there's other shortcuts to do all the animating in between frame 1 and frame 60. Because right now, if I move back to frame 1, you'll notice how it just hops. It doesn't do anything, it just appears in frame 60. And if I was to export my movie, which is under Control, Test Movie, but the shortcut is Command Enter, you'll see that it doesn't really do anything. It's going to blink when it goes over to the side here. That's obviously not a good animation. So we're going to do something in Flash called a tween, which makes the animation between frames 1 through 60. In order to create a tween, you just select the first frame and you select the last frame in between where you want to put the tween. And then you right click in that space, and in this case we're going to do a classic tween, which is basically going to do all the animating between frames 1 and 60. It's going to do it for you. So now if I watch my movie, Command Enter, there's my purple circle flying across the screen. Just so you understand a little bit more about keyframes, quickly throw a keyframe into the middle of your animation. And now see how it's jumped to the middle, because that's actually the perfect center of where this thing is moving from one side to the other. But it is a keyframe, so you can do something different to it. So throw it up here at the top of the screen. And now run your test movie, Command Enter, and see what it does. Okay, so you can see that it now looks like it floats to the top of the screen and comes out the other side. What I'd like you to do to practice with this is now try playing around with your other shape tools in here, rectangle tool, something like that, the polystar tool. You can also draw something random with the pen tool. Make new layers and see if you can apply classic tweens to a few different things and see what you can do with them. In a later on tutorial, we're going to talk about shape tweens and having objects follow paths. But this is step one for you to understand how to make simple movements within your animation. And once you've played with that for 5 or 10 minutes, then I want you to come back to your Flash file for your actual project and start to consider what elements in this you might use a classic tween to have things move around. Okay, good luck.